One of the best feelings in chess is when you take a worse position and you're not entirely sure what you're doing wrong and turn the tables on your opponent and end up winning the game. If you want to see how I did that against an 1850, make sure you stick around. Intro! Okay, I've got the black pieces in this game, and we're going to play a little d4, d5, and my opponent playing e3. E3 isn't great, especially if you're just trying to play off of opening principles, because the dark squared bishop is now locked inside the pawn chain. So let's see what we do. I just developed my pieces with knight f6. We have c4, so this ends up transposing into a queen's gambit declined, which would happen after c4 here. And e6, and it's as if my opponent played e3 and knight f6. We have the same position in the game here. And we have knight c3, okay, bishop e7. We're just developing our pieces pretty standard, and as soon as I see bishop d3, I like to take this pawn on c4 and make the bishop move twice, right? Now the bishop isn't staring at my h7 pawn, and if he wants to get back, he's gonna have to waste more time on that. Also, I start playing a6, trying to play b5 to kick the bishop and just win more time on that bishop, right? Say, okay, you came out, but now you got to take my pawn, and now you're going to have to get booted once more, right? So the bishop goes back. Although instead of going to d3, the bishop goes all the way back to e2. Which is a bit strange. I mean, it's a bit passive, right? You see black now has a bit of an edge, but it's still equal here. And I develop bishop to b7, getting to this diagonal looks very nice. And I'm going to try and play c5, maybe bring the knight out to one of these squares, the rook to the c file, and see what we can do. We have knight jumping into e5 right away before developing the bishop, which is stuck behind this pawn, right? And the rooks aren't in the game yet. The bishop's passive. He's jumping his knight in. Here, I should have just played knight d7, knight b to d7, developing the knight, trying to, you know, kick this knight out of here, and maybe after something like if he tries to develop, then taking, right, and then maybe taking the center with my knight, or, you know, trying to win the pawn this way. And now c5 is going to look really nice here, and maybe I'm even getting the queen and the bishop to team up on this diagonal. That's what I should have done. Instead, I play c5 right away. It's all right. We have bishop f3. This was a weird and kind of annoying move that I wasn't entirely sure how to deal with, because I'm a bit underdeveloped, right? But so is my opponent, okay? And we're going to probably trade bishops because I got a rook on the other side, and this bishop is undefended. Again, what I should have done is just move my queen to defend the bishop, right? Just get my queen active and defend the bishop, trade on my own terms. Instead, I played this. I played knight to d5, thinking, okay, we're going to start fighting in the center of the board. If takes, right, this is all fine, takes, and then I'll develop my knight, kick his knight out, and maybe I'll push this, get a lot of space on the queen side, and we're going to figure it out. Okay, but then things get very chaotic here. I had no idea what was happening anymore after e4, because there's just so much happening, especially for this 10-minute rapid game, right? We have this pawn staring at each other, this pawn staring here, the bishop staring through the pawn right this way. We have the knight threatening to maybe jump in if I'm not careful. We have these knights staring at each other. The queens are staring at each other through all of the central pawns. Look at this chaos on the board. I didn't know what to make of it, so I don't play the best move. Apparently I should have either taken on c3 and gone for something like this and just developing knight d7, not worrying about d5 at all because the knight hangs, and you know, if something like knight takes d7, queen d7, and d5, then I don't have to worry about this too much. Even though they get a passed pawn, it's not going anywhere, and I'm actually just gonna win that pawn, because there's no way to defend it. They have to try and get some counterplay with a4, but just bishop takes d5. And if we get all these trades, well, I'm up a pawn. But that's a long variation to see back here. Okay, so what I do instead is I take. So now we are both attacking our knights. He takes my knight. Okay, I take back, and we have a bunch of exchanges going on in the center of the board. Let's recap real quick. So, opponent played bishop f3, trying to get this bishop. right? I didn't want to take and let his queen get active, so I jump my knight in. We have e4, creating chaos, and we all exchange, and then we trade pawns in the center. The queen takes instead of the bishop, right? So queen takes the pawn, so material is restored to equality, and, excuse me, we trade another batch of pieces. Here I should have taken the queen, according to the engine, or played knight c6, which I did. And we have queen to e4. I bring my rook to the open c-file, right? Because, again, my opponent never developed this bishop, and the rooks aren't involved anymore at the moment, so I'm trying to get as active as possible here. Finally, we have the dark squared bishop coming out to f4, looking, controlling these dark squares in my position. And here I get a little too ahead of myself. I should just play like rook fe8, lining up, discovery on the queen, or maybe bishop f6, getting on the long diagonal. I start playing f5. I'm thinking maybe I get a rook lift to get to the king, right, here, and I win time on the queen this way. Maybe I still get bishop f6, right, and something here. But, yeah, there's queen e6 check. It's a little annoying because I gotta move my king to the corner, and now I always have to worry about back rank issues. I don't have time to make Luft, right? And I have this f-pawn that I'm stuck defending, so it's a bit, and all my pieces are pretty loose here because of how open the board is. My pieces don't have defense, especially because these pawns are already pushed. Okay, so he brings his rook, hits my queen, and now I have to slide over to e8, and you just see how cramped my position is. But I weasel my way out of it. I play rook to f6 here, hitting the queen, defending the knight once again. The queen gets booted, and I go ahead and play queen here, which is bad. I said I weaseled my way out of it, but not without a few mistakes. Because here there's bishop g5, hitting the rook, and the bishop on the other side. And I can't just, go here because of just bishop e7, and I can't even take back because knight e5. Ugh, ugly. So what I would need to find is bishop b4, and then bishop f6, bishop takes here, and then queen e6, hitting my rook, making it move and leave defense of the knight. I have to play super passive here in the corner. Look at all these pieces defending my king, right? And it's just the bishop is hanging, this bishop's hanging, the knight is hanging. This game is complete chaos. Okay. But opponent doesn't find that, instead plays knight e5. So I take the knight, the bishop takes, and now my rooks are doubled on the c-file. I'm starting to untangle, right? My pieces are no longer super cramped together trying to defend my king. I'm trying to get counterplay on the c-file and maybe the second rank over here. My queen's staring at the king already. The bishop can come in. So I'm starting to get a little bit of hope, right? I was definitely worse, but we have g3, creating some luft for the king and preventing my queen from seeing that g2 pawn. And I throw my rook to the second rank, looking to attack over on these pawns. We have bishop back. Okay, this kind of prevents this. Well, I mean, I guess that wasn't a threat in the first place, because, if you play this, then you lose this, and there is no discovery, because the queen just takes the bishop, right? Okay, but we have this, so there's no, f4 or anything like that. Anyway, bishop f6. This attacks the pawn, so his bishop has to go back. It's kind of funny, this bishop doing a little dance here, right? Back and forth, back and forth. Okay, so I go ahead and bring my rook back. I wasn't entirely sure what to do, right? But I bring my rook back so the queen no longer sees into my position on this diagonal. That was the whole idea of this. And I'm okay with this trade because now the pressure on my position is kind of lightened up. Because before, this dark squared bishop here is a lot more annoying than mine, right? Mine is purely defensive at the moment. Sure, it may get in here at some point, but his bishop is the one really causing problems. So I am happy to trade that bishop off. And now we're just kind of in a heavy piece endgame, end of the middle game type deal with just rooks and queens on the board, right? And then a bunch of pawns. So let's see. We have queen d3, and I play f4. I am trying to open up this king, maybe get my rooks in, thinking about some kind of, attack that I can get going over here. And we have b3. And here, I blunder the game away, not yet. After I take this. Look at that eval. +5. You know why? It's a free rook. I played this move thinking, okay, he can't do this, right? This tactic doesn't work because if I take and he tries to back rank mate me, then I can take the rook. And I was like, okay, so it doesn't work. But what I missed is the other rook can come down to e8, and this is just mate. I missed the... I calculated one of the rooks, but not the other, which is very silly of me. But he doesn't see it! He does not see it! Instead plays queen e3, giving back the game to equality. I go ahead and play h6, creating luft for my king, so that back rank is never an issue. And we have a4. But the problem with a4 is that since my rooks and my queen are coordinated so well now, I get to win a pawn. Look at this. I win a pawn. And here, ladies and gentlemen, my opponent flies off the handle a little bit. And I don't know what his idea was with this move. I really don't. If he thought there was some kind of tactic. But he played rook e8 check, which just does... the only thing it does is lose a rook for free. Like, it's just a free rook. I was not expecting this, okay? His entire game has been like these rooks in the center and the queen moving around just annoying me. And I have been trying to unravel my pieces. And then he just gives away the game with rook e8 check. Okay, so you're up a rook. But how do you actually win? Let's see. Well, I noticed the king is pretty weak, so there's two ways to win. I could either try and trade the pieces here and win an endgame up a rook, or I can try and checkmate. So, I do a combination of the two a little bit. I go ahead and play rook b2, teamed up with the queen, right, to start aiming at the f2 pawn, which he is still defending with queen here. But rook's on the second rank. I got my piggies on the 7th here, and there is no worry about a check. First of all, it's covered, and I've got luft, right? So now I'm really attacking the pawn. He has to defend it, but here's the thing. What is the easiest way to win this game? Easiest way. Trade all the pieces, and notice that I can get a outside pass pawn here after all the exchanges. So we have rook takes f2, and after all of these pieces get traded, the king is outside of the square, right? The square of the pawn. You draw a diagonal line to the end of the board and here, and you make a little square. If the king, if the king cannot enter the square, then the king cannot stop the pawn. And so I saw that here. I saw, okay, if I trade all the pieces and I take, and then I quickly drew this square, and the king is going to be just one move away from stopping this pawn. I would still be winning anyway, even if he could stop the pawn, because I've got a 2-on-1 over here as well. So you don't even really need to calculate all of that. Just notice that you have 2 extra pawns in a king and pawn endgame, and you're probably going to win. But it's just simple. Opponent resigned, realizing there's nothing he can do to stop my pawn. How about that? Well, hey, if you made it to the end of the video, I just want to thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did like the video, make sure you like the video and subscribe. Oh, and check out this video up here. I describe, you know, what it takes to become a grandmaster, the requirements and all of that. It's pretty fun. You should check it out. All right, have a good one, guys.